This video is brought to you by my supporters on Patreon. Hi guys, I'm here with another video, and in this video I'm showing you how I made the shoes for my Jester Sakura cosplay. To start off, I made a pattern using the duct tape method, and if you want to skip patterning, these patterns are up on my store Envy and Etsy. Both of those are linked in the description below. Using the tip of the shoe from that pattern, I transferred that onto EVA foam. 4 or 6mm EVA foam will work for this, and I'm doing this because the shoes come up to a point and I don't have a pair of base shoes that are shaped like that. Obviously, it's a very odd kind of shape. So in order to help the shoe covers that I'm making later, which are just made out of fabric, retain that shape and come to that point, I'm making a base out of foam that I can shove into the tip of the shoe. I trimmed some of the foam edges at an angle so that they're slightly beveled, just so that it will help the different pieces attach a little bit better and shape to the shape that I need it to be, basically. And then I glued all of the pieces for that base of the tip piece together using contact cement. And this is the shape that I ended up with. Next, I used a heat gun so that I could heat up the foam and round that tip out a teensy bit more, as well as shape it around the tip of my shoe. This would just later help it fit into place a little bit better, as well as make the shoe flow into the tip and look a teensy bit more seamless once the shoe cover was on. Then I added a piece of elastic around the bottom so that it can be totally secured into place when worn. And to figure out the length of this elastic, I just measured it while the tip was around my shoe so that the elastic felt snug, cut that, and then glued it into place using contact cement, and then I secured it again with a little bit of hot glue. Now it was time to move on to the fabric portion of the boot covers. So to do that, I cut out all of the patterns that I made, again using the duct tape method, onto stretchy blue fabric that matched some of the other blue fabric that I used in the rest of my costume. When cutting out the pattern, I also cut out just a small square that lined up with the top half of the boot covers, and then ironed a piece of interfacing onto that. I did this because her boots at the top, they stand straight up, but they're loose fitting, and this fabric is very flimsy and floppy, and it was not going to do that or hold that shape on its own without the interfacing. I took that piece with the interfacing on it and pinned it to the wrong side or the inside of all of the main shoe pieces, so the outer and inner sides, and I pinned it in a way that the inner facing was sandwiched between the two layers. And then I pinned the outside and inside halves of the shoes together, but only along the back seam. Then I sewed down the back seam using a zigzag stitch. Next, I added white bias tape along the top of the boot covers, but I didn't get footage of me pinning or sewing this into place, so hopefully this footage shows you pretty much how it should end up looking. I also added bias tape along the front opening because there is like a V shape that remains open at the front of her shoe, so I just pinned bias tape along where that area will be up until the point where the shoe or the boot cover will be sewed completely together, and then I sewed that into place. Once that bias tape was sewed into place, I pinned along the remaining top half of the boot covers and sewed that down using a zigzag stitch. By the way, I only used a straight stitch for the bias tape because the bias tape is not stretchy, and that part of the boot cover doesn't necessarily need to stretch because it is oversized and loose fitting at the top. Looks like a blink of an eye's not enough. She'd rather be staying for days now. I'd rather be sure to sew part of the very end of the area with the bias tape shut as well, just so that when that V shape does open up, you're not seeing the raw edge of the bias tape there or a weird area where it cuts off from being white bias tape to blue. You just want to make sure it all kind of flows together and it looks like the bias tape gets pulled into the seam even though it doesn't. Next, I sewed the front piece at the toe or the toe section of the boot covers on next. Again, I used a zigzag stitch. And to finish up the fabric portion, I added the base to the boot covers and then sewed that into place using a zigzag stitch. This is like the sole of a shoe or the bottom of your foot. It's that area. It closes up the rest of the shoe cover. And to finish up the shoe, I added these little clear plastic DIY ornaments that I painted the inside a goldish yellow color to the very tip of the shoes. And to add it to the tip, I seam ripped open the very tip again of the shoes at the toes just a little bit so that I could stick that little part of the ornament that sticks out that has the loop that you usually attach a hook to. I stuck that into the shoe and then hand sewed through that loop onto, hand sewed it to the seam allowance in the very inside of the shoe. I know that's kind of complicated, but this way that little tip or nub of the ornament was hidden inside the shoe cover and you didn't see that at all. That's what I was going for. However, you could totally attach it directly onto the tip of the shoe if you wanted. I just found that this helped the ornament sit up and stay at the top rather than droop over and fall over the edge of the shoe and pull the fabric with it. So yeah, seam rip open the tip of the shoe just enough to stick the little nub with the loophole in it into the actual shoe and then turn it inside out, holding that ornament in place, and hand sew through that loop to the rest of the seam allowance in the shoe. I'm keeping all of this in real time, so sorry if this area of the footage is a little bit slow, but I wanted to make sure that you could see what I'm doing and get a better idea of exactly how I sewed this ornament into place, because I think the way that I sewed it really did help it stay standing straight up on the shoe rather than pulling the fabric over the tip and flopping over onto like the front of the shoe.
Looks like we've come to the end of the road. There's no point in running away now. I'd rather sleep until the storm is gone. She'd rather be shooting at me now. I know it will end up in anger. I don't think we grew up, we just became older. She's aiming her words, ready to fire. I don't think that bullets will bring back desire.
To put this all on, I first put on my shoes, obviously, and then I put the foam tips that we made earlier on my shoes, and then I pull the boot cover over both of those, and voila! I have these pointy Jester clown-ish shoes. And that finishes up this video on how I made the shoes for my Jester Sakura cosplay. If you want to see the final outcome, there are photos up on my Instagram and website. The links are both down below. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys found this video helpful. Have a lovely day, and bye!